Hello and welcome to Basic Derivatives. To begin, we'll start out with some easier functions and then move on to a few more complicated ones, but still they're the most basic you'll find. And along the way, I'll show you the rules in which we use to solve them. So let's begin. For the first function, we have f of x equals 3. The rule for that is the constant rule, which states that the derivative of a constant is simply 0. So for A, f of x equals 3, well, f prime of x, which is notation for derivative, is just 0. So let's add that in. For the next one, f of x equals 7. Well, f prime of x will give you what? Just 0. So f prime of x is 0 here as well. And for C, we have f of x equals 2/5, another constant. So this one will be 0 as well. The constant is the simplest one. So now we'll move on to the power. We have 3 here. F of x equals x to the 6th, f of x equals x to the 1000th, and f of t equals t to the 4th power. So let's begin. Here, we're going to use the power rule. As you can see up here, the derivative of a function with a power is you bring down that power, leave the variable, and then you do the power minus 1, rewritten here as we go along each problem. So for the first function, f of x equals x to the 6th. Based on our power rule, to differentiate this, we bring down the n, which is 6, leave our variable, and then do the power minus 1. So 6 minus 1 is 5. And that's our derivative. Now let's try the next one. F of x equals x to the 1000. Now f prime of x will give you what? You bring down the power, 1000, leave the variable x, and then do 1000 minus 1, which is 999. And there's your answer. There. And for our last, you have f of t equals t to the 4th power. Rewritten here. Now f prime of t, based on our power rule equation, we get, bring down the 4, leave the variable, and then 4 minus t, well, minus 1, which is 3. There we go. Now for a different rule. For the next set of questions, we're going to use the constant multiple rule, stated up here. So if you have a constant times a function, you'll put aside that constant and then derive that function. So let's try one. you have G, question G here, where f of x equals 3x to the fourth. Now I will rewrite it here so that we can work on that problem, along with the rule. So our problem was f of x equals 3x to the fourth. Now here's our constant, and here's our f of x. So if this helps, you should put that on your test paper. Now the derivative of this, you put aside the constant, which is 3, and then derivate the function. And for this, we'll use the power rule. You bring down the 4, leave the variable, and then do the exponent minus 1, which is 3. So our final answer is 12x to the third power. Let's write that in. Let's try one more, and then we'll get into a little bit more of a complicated one. Here we have f of x equals negative x. This is also a constant rule. Well, a constant multiple rule. To solve, we'll use the same thing. So f of x equals negative x. Our power here is just 1. So f prime of x equals, you bring down the 1, so you have negative 1, leave the variable, and then 1 minus 1, sorry about that, to pick up where we left off, we had negative x to the 1 power. Now the derivative is negative 1, you bring down the power, leave the variable, and then you do the exponent minus 1. So 1 minus 1. So this will give you negative 1 x to the 0 power. Now x to the 0 power equals 1. So all this means is negative 1 times 1, which is just negative 1. So then we'll add that to the answer here. Okay, so to do the last problem, we're going to use all of these rules. So f prime of x, for this long polynomial here, the first part we use the power rule. So you bring down the 8, leave the variable, and do the exponent minus 1. Plus sum rule here. 12, you leave the constant, bring down the exponent, now we're using power rule, leave the variable, and then exponent minus 1, so 4. Minus, leave the constant, now we're using power rule again, and also the difference rule, because now we're subtracting. Times 4, bring down the power, leave the variable, and then exponent minus 1, so 3. Plus, so we have sum rule, leave the constant, times, and then you bring down the exponent, 3, x, leave the variable, and then exponent minus 1, so 2. To bring it all home, we have 8x to the 7th plus 60x to the 4th minus 16x to the 3rd plus 30x squared. And that's it. If you need any further help on doing derivatives, just visit any one of these sites on YouTube. He's very great. Khan Academy is free if you register with Facebook or Google. And I also found Math Meeting to be very helpful. Thank you, and goodbye.